Hi, my name is Christina Martello. My group members were Jennifer Roper, Cameron Colvert, Austin Munn, Dylan Smith, and Martin Nason. Together we made a video that's going to tell you all about life and what it's like during middle adulthood.
During middle adulthood, work and career represent a large part of a person's life. A person's career success can, in many ways, define them during this life stage. This is largely because during middle adulthood, most people are at their highest earning point and probably at the pinnacle of their career. In fact, many people during this time are starting to turn their eye toward retirement and the necessary financial planning to reach their retirement goals. Now, while this scenario is typical for someone who has been in their job or with the same employer for a long time, some people have moved jobs many times or job hopped a lot their entire lives. Or some may even be re-entering the workforce due to necessity because of divorce or death of a spouse. Those people may find it more difficult to find new employment during middle adulthood because of age discrimination. The Age Discrimination in Employment Act of 1967, or the ADEA as it's called, protects certain applicants and employees 40 years of age and older from discrimination on the basis of age in hiring, promotion, discharge, compensation, or terms, conditions, or privileges of employment. The original Age Discrimination in Employment Act was expanded to also prevent employers from forcing workers under the age of 70 to retire. In passing this act, Congress recognized that age discrimination was caused primarily by unfounded assumptions that age impacted ability. Although it may be difficult to prove, the ADEA is protected and enforced by the EEOC, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Now, many people are fortunate enough to start planning their retirement during middle adulthood. Studies have shown that the average retirement age is around 59 years old. However, the most common age to retire was 62 years old. 18.7% of retirees retired at age 62 and 63% retired between the ages of 57 and 66. Now, this is a definite shift from the long-standing notion that everyone should retire at age 55. Some of the reasons that people are waiting longer to retire is that people are living longer. Higher cost of living in certain areas may require them to continue working, and family circumstances such as financially taking care of elderly parents. Regardless of when someone retires, retirement represents a big change in lifestyle. Many people benefit most from a gradual transition out of full-time work to eventual full-time retirement, and some may never retire completely. Then again, it's been said that retirement is when you stop living at work and start working at living.
Midlife is an emotional time in one's life. There's a lot of changes emotionally, physically, and socially. One thing that's relatively constant, though, is your personality, and that is your characteristics and way of responding to events. It's the you that other people see. And it actually doesn't change much over time. Your personality as a teenager will actually be pretty similar to the one that you have during midlife. So let's take a look at the 5-factor model of personality. So this is our 5-factor model. These 5 traits in the middle make up the 5-factor model. They are openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Everyone has these 5 traits in varying amounts. As you see on this side, these are the traits where you would score low on each of these 5 traits, and these are the traits that people would have when you score high on these 5 traits in the middle. Personality can be important health-wise as well. Some studies have shown that centenarians, those are people who live to be over 100, are optimistic, easygoing, and have a positive attitude towards life. They score low on neuroticism and high on conscientiousness. So now let's imagine that we're in a car driving down the road. It's springtime, so there are lots of pretty trees and flowers. We pass our friend's house and we see them walking their dog. So we wave, but we still keep driving to our destination. We are completely tunnel vision on our destination. We have to get there. This is how a younger person views the world. They're continuously trying to get to their destination. It's the only thing in their mind. They give up the chance to look at flowers and stop by their friend's house in order to reach their destination. Now, suppose in the same scenario, we decide to take pictures of the flowers and trees and then stop by our friend's house and chat with them for a bit. Instead of giving up these immediate desires, you do them because you're living in the present and not looking towards your destination. This represents our middle-aged adult. According to Carstenson's socio-emotional selectivity theory, older individuals tend to shift their perspective to living in the moment rather than working for futuristic goals. Our infamous midlife crisis. This is a period of time in our life where we have a greater likelihood of finding ourselves in a series of difficulties. This is a little misleading though, because this not only happens during midlife, it can happen anywhere. Many people think that the transition to 30 is more stressful than the transition to age 40. This would be called our quarter life crisis. In our midlife, though, many people are likely to experience several of the same things that have a high chance of causing crises. Caring for your spouse could cause a midlife crisis, as well as adjusting to an empty nest, becoming a grandparent, and changes within our jobs. Certain physical changes also happen during this life stage that could potentially cause ourselves to go through a crisis. Going through menopause and andropause, dealing with disease and illness, and adjusting to our aging bodies. The major task associated with this life stage, according to Erickson, is to help the next generation grow and be successful. If we are unable to do this, then we revert to stagnation, the inability or unwillingness to help others. This is linked to feelings of frustration and emotional upheaval and distress. By helping others, middle-aged adults can find happiness.
So today we will be asking my aunt here, who not non-biological, but my aunt, who is, would you please tell them what your nationalities are?
I was born in Canada and my dad is Cuban, so I am Canadian and Cuban.
So I will be asking today how the different cultures from which she comes from affects her life. So during a middle adulthood, what would you say parental relationships are like? Are they easier than from when you were younger, or are they more difficult?
Well, the Cuban side gets a little bit harder because when you grow up as a Hispanic, you are taught that you have to take care of your parents through everything. So when they get older, they're supposed to live with you, you're supposed to take care of them. Now on the Canadian side, it's a whole different aspect where they pretty much take care of themselves. Like my grandparents were in pretty much like a luxury place when they got older in their 80s. And my mom never had to really do much because they took care of themselves. So it's kind of two different aspects of my culture, I guess. So
Interesting. Around what age do most of the children seem to leave home at?
oh, that's a good one. For most of my culture, I think it's around whenever you can get a job. So when you're 16, 17, 18, around there, they expect you to be able to be responsible for yourself and take care of yourself and not have to rely on them to get through. So it's pretty young.
Yeah, I'm still working on that with my own household. I know I am far from ready for moving out. Well, you kind of answered this already about the elderly parents coming back. But do they normally live with the middle adult children?
It depends. Most of the time, like for me, my parents, they decided that they weren't going to do that. They have a whole thing set up so when they do get older that they won't have to live with us. They have everything set up. But in normal Cuban or Canadian culture, more so Cuban, that would be a big aspect that your parents would be living with you, that you would pretty much take care of them. Not so much on the Canadian side.
Interesting. Is it true that all Canadians finish their sentences with A?
Yes.
The quality of relationships is a major predictor of the well-being of people during their midlife years, more specifically with their relationships with their parents, spouses, and children. When it comes down to relationships with their parents, they have to start dealing with their old age and increasing physical issues. Most people lose their parents during their midlife years. The National Survey of Families and Households recorded that about 40% of people entering their midlife years have both of their parents, while 75% of people leaving their midlife years have lost both of their parents. The empty nest transition is the period when children permanently leave their parental home. All parents can expect it to occur, but their experiences can be different. It's presumed that mothers have a more difficult time dealing with it because they have probably invested more time and energy into raising their children and in turn created a stronger bond with them. When they leave, mothers are forced to give up their daily parenting role, which can cause emotional distress. The empty nest transition used to be labeled as a syndrome and a psychiatric condition. There aren't only negatives though. Some positives can include an increase in marital quality and life satisfaction due to more time to reconnect with their spouse, interests, and other activities.
When you consider health and physical changes in middle adulthood, you usually think of your body breaking down and starting to decline. Some people think it's all downhill from there. However, in most cases, actual physical health is still pretty solid in middle adulthood. No matter how much a person exercises and stays active, though, there are certain biological changes that are inevitable during this life stage. One of the major biological changes that occurs during middle adulthood for women is menopause. The average age of menopause is about 51, although some women experience it earlier or later than that. It's marked by a major change in the female reproductive system. Basically, a woman stops ovulating and is no longer able to produce eggs and therefore reproduce. Because the ovaries are responsible for body-regulating hormones, once perimenopause happens, which is when the ovaries finally stop working, there are quite a few physical changes that women experience during this time. The first and best symptom of perimenopause approaching is missed, shorter or lighter periods, and they will eventually stop completely. No more of these. So let's talk about the other symptoms that aren't so pleasant. Everyone has heard the tales of hot flashes, mood swings, weight gain, insomnia, night sweats, memory problems, changes to skin and hair, and even facial hair, among other things. Well, I'm here to tell you those are real. During what I call a power surge, you can go from this to this in just a matter of seconds. No matter how much you exercise, that inner tube around your waist just won't deflate. No matter how many glasses of wine you drink, you still can't sleep through the night. All of your family members have to sleep in parkas because you man the thermostat according to your night sweats. You can't remember your own name sometimes. You start getting zits like a teenager, and you have to start shaving your chin so you won't look like this. Although women vary in terms of how severe or how many of these symptoms they experience, the drastic change in hormone levels can be combated by taking hormone replacements. Now, there is a theory that men also go through a shift during this time, although it's not as evident or sudden, and it's called andropause or menopause. During this time, they may also experience hot flashes, mood swings, weight gain, loss of muscle mass, decrease in testosterone levels, and sex drive. But it's not all hormones and hot flashes. Paul Baltus, a German psychologist in the field of the psychology of aging, and his wife Margaret, proposed the selective optimization with compensation model, which encourages those in middle adulthood and older to take an active role in the aging process to promote successful aging. This can involve setting goals, completing those bucket list items, and taking advantage of the physical abilities and talents that a person still has to compensate for those abilities that may be declining. Studies have shown that this practice can result in improved physical and emotional health, giving someone a sense of purpose and accomplishment instead of focusing on the losses. Many individuals in middle adulthood have reported experiencing a higher level of satisfaction and appreciation of activities, career, and relationships. This may be due to increased maturity and more life experience, though. Overall, although we can't stop most of the biological processes from occurring in middle adulthood, we can learn how to handle and compensate for them so that our overall well-being and quality of life actually increases.
Middle adulthood takes place in your 40s, 50s, and early 60s. During this time, you undergo many changes. One of the most common is cognitive decline, where memory and processing speed slows but maybe go unnoticed, which is owed largely to them possessing general intelligence and using it to compensate for it. The Whitehall 2 study done in the UK circa 1985 to 2009 selected 4 age groups ranged 35 to 55. They would undergo various cognitive tests, 3 in total through the span of the study. The tests measured inductive reasoning, short-term memory, phonemic fluency, which is being able to identify, hear, and manipulate distinct units of sound, and semantic fluency, which is naming things that belong to a certain category in a time trial. The study found the earliest change occurred at age 45 to 50 at a 3.6% loss and as much as 9.6% in your 60s, reasoning skills being the most affected. Physical aging of the brain can also be the blame for cognitive decline. Parts of the brain shrink like the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, and interestingly enough, only for males, the cerebellum shrinks, all affecting speech, memory, and motor functions. Degradation of the white matter in the brain occurs with aging as well, yielding slower processing speeds and less coordination. And lower levels of dopamine and inhibitory neurotransmitters are present with aging, which are essential for memory and learning as well.